Oh, was there a question?
Yes, I was going to ask if the same thing was done for other meetings, because I had RSVP'd for the CATA Zoom, but I had class, so.
Yes, great question. So this presentation is part of our week-long series of events for Your Major Abroad series, and we have been recording most sessions. I do know that my colleagues were unable to record a couple of those. I don't know off the top of my head which ones those are, but for the ones that aren't recording, we do have the slides available, and everything will be posted on our Your Majors Abroad webpage, which you can find on our homepage, but also we will mail the recordings and or slides out to anyone who RSVP'd. So Victoria, you should be getting that by next week at the latest.
Okay, thank you so much.
No problem. All right, so hi, my name is Kyle Rausch. I serve as the Executive Director of the UIC Study Abroad Office. And today you are here for our presentation called Secure the Bag, Funding Your Study Abroad Experience. And as I just described, this is part of our week-long series of events we're calling Your Major Abroad. Each day this week, we posted different presentations catering to different colleges, majors, and disciplines to help you as students understand how study abroad can fit in for your degree plan. So our week-long series of events will conclude tomorrow with presentations for the College of Business, Engineering, as well as the Gilman Scholarship Information Session, which we're going to talk a little bit about today. So check those events out if they're applicable to you. Before I dive in, though, I want to share just a little bit about myself. So I first studied abroad when I was a student in high school. I went to France as part of my school's French club. And to say it changed my life, obviously would be a vast understatement. I remember at the time trying to think about what I wanted to study in college. Didn't really have a good idea. And then I came back from that study abroad in France, and I knew I wanted to become a French and international affairs major. And so that's just what I did. And then through my 4 years at college, I had the incredible opportunity to study on 2 short-term programs in Paris and do 1 internship in London at the British Parliament. And although that sounds like I must have had money to make that happen, I can assure you I didn't. I'm a first-generation college student. My parents both worked full-time jobs, some years more than one, and they couldn't support me in all those study abroad experiences. So this issue of how to afford study abroad is one that's very personal to me. And I was fortunate enough to apply for some scholarships and use financial aid. And so I'm happy to kind of pass that information on to you today and hopefully help make your study abroad dreams a reality. So that's what brings us together today. And with that, we'll go ahead and get the presentation started. So here's what we're going to cover today. We'll talk a little bit about this myth I think that sometimes students have, that study abroad might be too expensive. Then we'll dive into the 3 main buckets, as I like to call them, for how students can afford studying abroad, and that's being through financial aid, scholarships, and community-based funding. And then we'll end with some things to consider and tips and some testimonials and upcoming events, and we will have plenty of time for Q&A. So if you think of a question, feel free to put it in the chat and I can get to that towards the end. And at the end, we'll also have time if you want to unmute yourself and turn your camera on, you're more than welcome to ask questions that way as well. All right, so let's start off by addressing what I think is a very common myth that many students have about study abroad, and that is that studying abroad costs more than it does to study at UIC. I'm fairly new to UIC, having just started last year, and so this was one of the very first things I wanted to take a look at, is how do our study abroad program costs compare to an average semester here at UIC? So I ran the data and put together the chart that you see on this slide. And so let me just walk you through it real quick. For this bar right here with the UIC logo, what you're seeing is the total cost of attendance for an in-state student. And when we say total cost of attendance, what that means is we're talking about your tuition and fees, your living expenses such as your housing and food and personal spending money and transportation, your books and supplies. So everything that you need to be able to budget for in order to go to school. Well, as you see here by this bar with the globe, this is showing our average study abroad cost for a semester for what we call low cost. And this means we actually have several programs that are cheaper than what it costs for an in-state student to study at UIC. And that was a very pleasant surprise for me when I came to UIC, that you can actually study abroad on some programs at a lower cost. But even if you're not an in-state student, this bar shows the cost of attendance for out-of-state students. You see that we do have some programs, the average mid-cost for study abroad, that are cheaper than what it costs for an out-of-state student to study at UIC. And certainly, as this bar suggests, we do have some programs that cost a little bit more, but I hope you see that the gap between what an out-of-state student pays to study at UIC and even some of our most expensive programs isn't really that much. So I hope that this chart helps eradicate that myth for you and makes clear that study abroad can be affordable and comparable to what you're already spending to attend UIC. Now, that being said, I know cost is still a concern and students need to find ways to pay for study abroad. So now we're going to talk about 3 different buckets, if you will, about how you can approach making study abroad affordable. And the first is by considering your federal financial aid that you may have available. So first, if you have a FAFSA on file, this will allow you the opportunity to potentially use some federal financial aid to help offset the cost of studying abroad. Now, I've worked with a lot of students over my time in study abroad who say they typically maybe don't file the FAFSA because they never really get offered much. And I always tell every student who's considering studying abroad and who's able to file the FAFSA to do so, because what happens is when you study abroad, your cost of attendance actually changes. And sometimes students who typically aren't offered much aid then find they have access to aid that they typically don't get because the study abroad program has changed their cost of attendance. So it doesn't cost anything to file a FAFSA, and it's gotten a lot easier over the past few years to file it. So I always think it's a great rule of thumb. If you're thinking about studying abroad, go ahead and file your FAFSA just to see what aid you might qualify for. On that note, if you receive certain types of aid, that will open up some scholarship opportunities for you. And one that we're going to talk about today is the Gilman Award. And this is for students who receive a Pell Grant. So if you don't know if you get a Pell Grant, look at your financial aid student account or talk with a representative of financial aid. And if they tell you you receive a Pell Grant, come talk to us about the Gilman Scholarship. We're going to talk a little bit about that today, but it's a fantastic scholarship opportunity for Pell Grant students. One moment, we've got some more students joining us. There we go. Welcome everyone, we just begun. The next thing I like to explain about financial aid is that it's important for you to think about when you want to study abroad, because financial aid works a little bit differently in the semester than it does in the summer. You can get financial aid for a summer program. However, just like it is for summer programs here on campus, aid is a lot more limited in the summer. And what that means is your summer aid is tied to your fall and spring semester aid. So if you took every grant offered to you in the fall or spring, or every loan offered you in the fall or spring, you're not going to have a ton left over for you in the summer. So all that means is if you are thinking about wanting to do a summer program and you want to use financial aid, be mindful of how much aid in the fall or spring you choose to use. That way you might keep some of it for your summer program. The other thing about financial aid, as I'm sure many of you know, is that you do have to maintain minimum credit enrollments. And so during a semester for undergrads anyways, that's usually about 12 credits. And then in the summer, that tends to be 6 credits. So just keep that in mind, that if you're wanting to use financial aid, you have to pick a program where you can take those number of credits. And then in order to help you plan for your costs, we're in the middle actually of implementing a brand new system where every program will have its own web page on our website. And on those pages, we have what are called cost sheets, where that gives you a line by line breakdown of everything that is included in your program fee and things that you also need to budget for while you're abroad. And so this can be a really powerful tool in helping you shop around for programs to find one that works for your budget, but also in having conversations with financial aid, because they can actually take that cost sheet and then they can do some calculations and let you know an estimate of financial aid you may qualify for. So don't feel like you have to commit to a program before having these discussions with financial aid. We work with a wonderful colleague. Her name is Hua, and she is the assistant director in financial aid. And she's happy to sit down with you, look at that cost sheet, look at your FAFSA, and give you an estimate of what aid you might qualify for. And then lastly, we have a great team of study abroad advisors who advise for certain regions around the world. And they can also look at the cost sheet with you, help you explore different programs, and help you find a program whose cost matches the budget that you can afford. So it's just a little bit about federal financial aid. I just want you to know that you have us and of course our colleagues in financial aid who can help you navigate this process, but that you can use financial aid to study abroad. Now, the next thing I want to talk about are scholarships. This is my favorite thing to talk about in this presentation because scholarships are in essence free money, right? You submit an application and then someone hopefully awards you a scholarship to use to study abroad. And we are blessed at UIC to have many different types of scholarships for study abroad. So first, my office, the Study Abroad office, does have a number of scholarships that we make available for students participating on our program, and they're all listed on our website. We have an entire funding section of our website, and at the end of the presentation, I'll show you where you can find those. Next, many departments and colleges on campus have scholarships for study abroad. So it's always a great idea to ask your academic advisor, check with faculty in your classes and ask if they're aware of any. Off the top of my head, for instance, I know the Honors College has a lot of funding available for their students to participate and study abroad. So definitely make sure you're talking with your advisors. And then we spend a lot of time connecting students to external scholarships. And these might be nationally competitive scholarships, such as the Gilman, which I mentioned, or we work with dozens of study abroad partners, and they offer scholarships for our students to go on their programs. And sometimes they even offer automatic discounts. So just because you're a UIC student and we have an affiliation with them, they can oftentimes provide you discounts. And again, your study abroad advisor can review all of this with you as you are looking at programs. So let's talk a little bit about some specific scholarships that you might be eligible for. So on this screen, we list the scholarships that my office administers. And you can see the wide variety here. So we have the Nina Shepherd, and we have awards for summer and semester programs. We have the Stanley Eikenberry Award at $700. The Judy Curry Scholarship is specific for students interested in studying in China, and the amount varies. We have a brand new scholarship that was launched earlier this year called the First Gen Flames Abroad Scholarship. And this one is for first-year students who are the first in their families to go to college. So if this is your first semester at UIC, and if you are a first-generation college student, be on the lookout in the spring semester for information about how you can apply for this award. We definitely want to see your application come through. And if you're not a first-year student, but you have friends who are, please make sure that they're aware of this new scholarship. And then the last scholarship here just launched this week called the John Newveen Scholarship, and they are in the amount of $1,000. And this is for any UIC student, undergrad or graduate, who is participating on a UIC study abroad program. The application is put on our website this week, so again, you can find it on our website. And then the second half of this screen shows you some of those departmental scholarships I mentioned. So as I said, the Honors College has one. You see it's up to $2,500. The College of Liberal Arts and Sciences has scholarships available. And if you're going for a semester, you can see you could get as much as $5,000. We have another LAS scholarship. And then if you're interested in studying German, our Germanic Studies Department has scholarships. This is not an exhaustive list. As you all know, UIC is such a big school and sometimes departments don't let us know about the funding they have. So again, it never hurts to ask your advisor if they're aware of any other funding opportunities in your department. All right, we have 3 different types of programs, and one of those is faculty-directed programs. And these are our short-term programs led by UIC professors. So some of these programs have their own built-in scholarships that if you're interested in going on that program, you can apply for. So we have our social services internships in Paris program that has a scholarship opportunity. Our field ecology in Ecuador program has one. We have a spring break program that will travel to London next spring break, and there is a $1,500 discount for students who are in the Honors College and who apply for that program by the priority deadline. And then our Spanish language and culture for bilingual students in Oaxaca, Mexico also has a small scholarship opportunity. We are working to get these programs on our website soon, so you can check the program pages for information about how to apply for these scholarships. Every program has a funding tab, and that's where you would find the information. All right, and then we like to also talk about some general scholarships, meaning scholarships that aren't necessarily designed for study abroad, but can still help you offset the cost. So what do I mean by this? Well, if you receive any of these scholarships or other ones, then that can free up money for you to otherwise put towards your study abroad. So one thing I also like to advise students to do is when you talk to your academic advisor and if you ask if their department has a study abroad scholarship, and if they say no, then the next question you should ask is, are there any general scholarships for students in my major to apply to? Because if you get a scholarship that can help you pay for a future semester here at UIC, then that's more money and financial aid you can save for your study abroad semester, if that makes sense. So again, these are just a few. Hopefully you're familiar with SNAP, that's UIC's scholarship database, and you can find hundreds more general scholarships, as well as all of the study abroad scholarships I've already mentioned. They are all available for you to find in SNAP. And so with SNAP, that's where you would apply for all of these scholarships, and it's just snap.uic.edu. Again, this is where you can find all of the study abroad offices scholarships and the other generic UIC scholarships. In order to apply, when you first log into SNAP, you have to fill out what's called a general application. And this is just some basic demographic information that will help match you to scholarships you're eligible for. And then once you fill out the general application, you will fill out a specific scholarship application for each scholarship that you want to apply to. All right, so after you've exhausted your UIC scholarship search, then we start to look beyond UIC, and there are a number of excellent awards for study abroad. Here are some of the big ones. So foreign fellowships can fund up to $25,000. These tend to be for longer term programs for language study. There is an awesome organization called the Fund for Education Abroad, and they have scholarships for up to $10,000, and they have a wide variety of scholarships you can apply to. I really like them because rather than having to apply for each of their individual scholarships, you just have to submit one general application, and then they match you to the scholarships that you're eligible for. So it's almost like an automatic application process. Freeman Asia and US Japan Bridging Foundation are for students who are interested in studying in Japan or other countries in Asia. And then we also list several other external scholarships on our website. But perhaps the most important or popular scholarship, especially for UIC students, I want to spend time talking about again, is the Gilman Award. And as I mentioned, this is for Pell Grant students. So you must be receiving a Pell Grant in order to apply for Gilman. There also is a newer scholarship coming out from Gilman called the Gilman McCain Scholarship. And this is for students who are child dependents of active duty military service members. So if your father or mother is currently serving in the military, you would be eligible for the Gilman McCain Scholarship. The good news again with this one is it's one application and you can apply for both. And if you're eligible for both, you'll be considered. With the Gilman Scholarship, these are for awards for up to $5,000. And if you're studying what's called a critical need language, you could get as much as $8,000. And critical need languages are just languages that have been designated by the US government as being especially important for our country's defense. And there's a list of those languages we can provide to you if you're curious. We are currently in an active application cycle, as you can see here for Gilman, the deadline for which is October 5th. And this would be if you're interested in studying abroad on a program that starts between December 1st of this year and October 31st of next year. So if you think you might like to go abroad anytime between that period of time, then you should be trying to apply for this by October 5th. Otherwise, the next application cycle, the deadline will be March 1st, and this would be for programs that start May 1st of next year and go through April 30th of 2023. Now, the Gilman Scholarship has an application process that has a couple of essays that students need to write in order to apply. And so we're hosting some upcoming info sessions. Our first one is actually tomorrow, about how you can make your application to Gilman competitive. And I really want you, if you receive a Pell Grant, to come talk to us about this. I know a lot of times students, and I felt this way too, think, well, it's a national scholarship, there's no way I could be competitive for it. But the interesting thing about Gilman is they created this scholarship to expand access to study abroad. So what they want to see is diverse students applying. And yes, when we say diversity, we think race and ethnicity. But in study abroad, we think much more broadly. So for instance, we think about first generation college students. We think about students who might be military veterans or students who are returning to school after some time, students with disabilities, LGBTQIA students, students who are studying degrees that are difficult to go abroad, such as the STEM fields, so science, technology, engineering, and math, and there are some other disciplines. So there are a lot of things that can make you a unique applicant. The other thing about Gilman is it thinks about diversity in terms of location. So where do you think most students choose to study abroad? What region of the world? Someone go ahead and put some guesses in the chat here. Yes, great answer, Europe. So Europe is, no surprise, the most popular region for students. So pretty much what Gilman says is if you are interested in studying abroad outside of Europe, that will help increase the likelihood that you get a Gilman. Now, it doesn't mean that you can't apply for Gilman if you want to go to Europe. It just means most students who apply for Gilman are applying to go to Europe, so your competition is a lot higher. So if you're open to exploring other destinations, that can make you a more competitive applicant. So again, if you receive a Pell Grant, definitely consider Gilman. In addition to these 2 info sessions that are coming up, we have some special writing workshops to actually coach students on how to write an effective essay for the Gilman. So the info sessions are going to be more about the scholarship in general and what goes in the application. These writing workshops, we're actually going to do some real-time writing with you to get you started on your essays. And we're partnering with the Office of the Vice Provost of Diversity to give you some tips on how to talk about your identities and your diversity in your essay. It's not always an easy topic to write about, right? We live our lived experiences and our identities, but sometimes when we try and articulate that, it can feel odd. And so these workshops will help you begin to unpack how you can write an effective scholarship essay for Gilman. So here are those workshop dates. Again, all of these events, the info sessions and the writing workshops, you can find by going to our homepage and scrolling to the bottom where the events section is. And again, I'll show you where that is towards the end of our workshop. Okay, so we've talked about financial aid and scholarships, but I want to talk about a third way in which students can afford study abroad, because invariably, you probably won't find a single scholarship that can pay for your entire experience. So you're probably going to have to bring some of your own funding. And I have found in working with students that they have had a lot of success with this idea of community-based funding. And all this is, it means it's just leveraging your networks to support your pursuit of study abroad. And so you might think about your friends, your family, look to your school, or if you have colleagues at work, organizations you might be a member of, such as a church or sports group. And then there's local organizations. We had some students who are part of a Key Club who found that their members were willing to donate to their study abroad. The key, and I know it can be uncomfortable asking people for money, is it's not that. You're not just going, hey, will you give me money to study abroad? You have to really work at how you articulate why you want to study abroad, because that's going to make people want to donate to your cause. And so we can help coach you on that. The good news is study abroad is exciting. Most people understand the benefits that participating in study abroad can bring to your academic and your professional life. But you can't just say, I want to go to Spain next summer, will you donate to my GoFundMe? You actually have to articulate why the program you picked is the one you're interested in, how it relates to what you want to study and do in life, and those things. And again, that's where our advisors can help you with that. So one popular way students have been seeing a lot of results with is crowdsource funding. And I'm sure a lot of you have seen, maybe some of your friends had their own kind of GoFundMe pages and whatnot. There are some do's and don'ts to doing an effective crowdsource funding campaign. So for those of you who don't know, crowdsource funding websites are websites that allow you to create a campaign to fundraise for your study abroad program. So you kind of create a page, you describe what you're raising money for, and then you have a way to collect donations from people. Again, it's important that you clearly articulate why you're pursuing study abroad, so that way people know it's more than you just traveling Europe and backpacking, right? You're gonna be taking classes, maybe doing an internship, and maybe you're gonna fit this into future graduate school plans or your career somehow. So that's the first step. And the next is setting a realistic goal. You know, I've seen some GoFundMe pages where our students are trying to raise $15,000 to fund their whole program. And as a potential donor, you can imagine if you come across that page and you see $15,000 and the progress bar is only at, 2%, you might think to yourself, I really would like to support the student, but they're never going to get there, right? It just is hard to wrap your mind around such a big number. So instead, we like to recommend that students work with us and look at the cost sheets in a budget, and they think about how much financial aid they might use, how many scholarships they might be able to get, and they come up with that gap of unmet need. And that should be the number that you use as your goal for your crowdsource funding, rather than putting the overall cost of your program, because that, again, might just scare people away. And then the other thing is, you can't just create your page and say it's done and put it out there one time. You've got to be tenacious with this. And you also have to give your donors regular updates. And so this could look like, if you're applying for a summer program, hey, I submitted my application today, I got accepted to the program, that gets people excited. And then maybe as you move in the spring and you attend pre-departure meetings, you start sharing with your donors what it is you're going to be doing on your program as you learn. And that helps create a sense of community and this desire to follow along on your journey. And people might be inspired to give more. And then the last thing I've seen students be really creative with is this idea of giving back to your donors and kind of incentivizing them and thanking them for considering donating. And it doesn't have to be big. I've seen some students do a tiered system where they say, if you donate $5, I will, if you're an artist, draw you something or take photos while I'm there. If you donate $10, I'll mail you a postcard. $15, I will buy you an Eiffel Tower keychain. You gotta think creatively and think what's doable for you. But again, it doesn't have to be big. The idea here is just giving back and thanking your donors. One important thing, if you're considering starting a crowdsource funding campaign, is read the terms and conditions of the site you're using very carefully. Some of these sites do keep a certain percentage of what you raise. I've heard of other sites that actually will keep 100% of what you raise if you don't meet your goal. So one website we like to promote is called Fund My Travel, because it actually was created for study abroad students. So there's a number out there, but this is one you might consider checking out. All right, so now that we've talked about financial aid, scholarships, and community-based funding, here are some general tips as you think about putting together your funding plan for study abroad. So first, consider factors such as location and duration of the program. I'm just gonna mute everyone real quick. So certain regions around the world are just known to be more expensive than others. So as a general rule of thumb, a lot of major European metropolitan capitals, of course, are probably going to be pricier than, let's say, some destinations throughout Central and South America or parts of Asia. Of course, that's just an overgeneralization to some degree. I've been to Tokyo, and that's a very expensive city. But if you are willing to look at destinations that are in smaller cities or less traveled spaces, that might be a way to keep costs down. And then, of course, duration matters. If you're going to go abroad for a whole year, that's going to cost you a lot more than participating on a short-term spring break program. And so we have programs of varied length to help you find one that fits within your budget. And then next, remember, we have different kinds of programs, and I'm not reviewing those today because we've covered those in other presentations throughout this week, but they are available on our website for you to read about. So the different kinds of programs have different financial structures, and some might work better for you than others. So for instance, on an exchange program, you pay your UIC tuition. So whatever you pay to attend class here is what you would pay to go on an exchange program. So it makes it very easy to budget and understand what your cost is. It also means that whatever financial aid you get to pay for school here at UIC will easily transfer to your exchange program. Whereas on a partnership or faculty directed program, you're going to pay a program fee that covers almost all your expenses, such as your classes, your housing, a lot of the activities that you do as a group while you're abroad. So that number might at first appear higher, but you want to keep in mind that it's covering a lot more, because on an exchange program, you're just paying your tuition. And then when you get overseas, of course, you have to worry about your housing, your food, your activities, and so forth. I mentioned this earlier in passing, but some of our program partners actually offer automatic discounts in their own scholarships. So that might be a reason for you to consider doing a partnership program over another program type, because some of our partners have a lot of scholarships. And then I mentioned this, but it's worth repeating, study abroad favors diversity in many forms. So I encourage you to think about what makes you a diverse applicant. If you're curious, a great website to explore is IIE, the Institute of International Education. And they have a report called the Open Doors Report. And you can look at that and read about the statistics of who studies abroad out of the US. And that might give you some ideas about how you are a diverse candidate. But again, this is something my staff can also help you with. So don't be afraid to bring this up and we can help you think it through. And this last point is extremely important. You have to start planning early because many scholarship deadlines are earlier than you may expect. So for instance, we saw the Gilman Scholarship is already open for programs that go through October of next year. So unfortunately, I have a lot of students who come to me right before the application deadline and they ask about scholarships, and by then it oftentimes is too late. So I hope those of you who are here today are thinking about programs maybe next year or beyond, so that way you have plenty of time to get your funding plan in motion. Great, on this slide, I just thought it's always nice for US students to hear from fellow students. And so we have a couple quotes from students who share how they raised money for their program. So we see up here that Nitsania said, nothing was going to stop me. However, my biggest challenge was not being eligible to apply for certain scholarships due to not meeting the minimum GPA requirement. So she says, this resulted in me applying for everything I was eligible for, but also accepting some of the loans that were offered to me. It was worth every penny. So I haven't talked a lot about loans, although those are included in federal financial aid. And I know most of us are loan averse, and I think that's a very smart way to be. But I also want you to know that is an option, and I can share personally, although I did receive many scholarships when I chose to study, or excuse me, intern in London for a whole semester. London was just such an incredibly expensive city and a semester was a long time. I also did have to fill some of my cost gap through a small loan. So again, a financial aid office can help you understand what loan options you have. I think an important thing to know about loans is that you don't have to take the full amount offered to you. So let's say you're just coming up short for your plane ticket amount. You know, that might be just a $1,200 loan, which is very, very easy to pay off versus a $12,000 loan, right? Then we have Zuriel, who studied abroad multiple times, and he shares, throughout the process, there was always the financial risk of not realizing the opportunity to go abroad. I was able to use and mobilize through my network, again, to that community-based funding idea, to seek for financing opportunities to help cover the cost of going abroad. There are numerous UIC scholarships that can help one obtain these great opportunities. All right, that has been a lot of me talking. I know it's a lot of information too, so we have plenty of time to tackle any questions. And feel free to ask me anything about study abroad. Although we're here to talk about funding today, if you have other questions, I'm happy to try and answer those as well. So you can put your questions in the chat, or if you feel so inclined, you're welcome to unmute yourself and ask it aloud. Perhaps while you're thinking of questions to type up, I will quickly show you our website where you can find some of the resources I've covered. So again, feel free to keep typing your questions. I'm just going to share my screen real quick and walk you through our website.
I was going to ask, how do we find the Zoom links for like the scholarship writing workshops and just the other workshops?
Excellent question. Let's show you that on the website. So our website is studyabroad.uic.edu. And if you're looking for the events, what you'll do is you'll scroll down to the very bottom, and you see we have these little calendar bubbles here, and you can see all of our future events by clicking on more events. And hopefully there is not, there we go. And so the Gilman Scholarship session I mentioned should be tomorrow. So let's find that. Here we go. So here's for the one tomorrow, and here's for the one on the 15th, and then here's the writing workshops. Okay, so that was just off the home page. Okay, while you put other questions up, I'm going to show you where the funding resources section is. So again, we're back on the home page. The easiest way to get there is to go to this middle bar and click on Find Funding. And this will take you to the entire funding section of our website, where we have information that I covered about affordability, financial aid. I'll go ahead and click on scholarship so you can see all of the scholarship opportunities. So here are the UIC Study Abroad Office ones. Here's the chance.
If you want to, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
If we want to study abroad for the summer, when do you think we should start the scholarship search? Because right now, most of the scholarships are for like, I guess the spring.
Yeah, good question. So I think you should actually get on here now and start, even if you can't apply for them yet, you should start doing your research about when the deadlines will fall, just to make sure you don't miss them. Okay, so what I did when I was a student is I had my little Excel spreadsheet. When I would find one I wanted to apply for, I'd put it in there, I'd note the deadline, get that in my calendar, and make sure I made it in time. Okay, a lot of summer 2022 scholarships will be starting to be due around October, November, December. So keep an eye out on those. We just loaded today to our scholarship opportunities for this whole academic year into SNAP. So if you were checking that out last week or earlier this week, they weren't in there, but they are now. Okay, let's check the chat real quick. So someone asked that they have the President's Award Scholarship. Can I only use that for UIC Exchange? So no, I believe that scholarship should be available for you to use for any semester program. I'd have to double check on summer, but I believe that could be applicable on semester programs. No problem. All right, so I was just walking through our scholarship page. So here is some information about, I mentioned our partners. So again, some of our partners are like IES, SIT, CEA. So if you wanted to go on any of their programs, they have their own scholarship opportunities. And you just see a long list of many other partners that you could apply for. Then this tab has some of the big national scholarships, some of which we covered. Gilman's right here, but there's several others. Here's the Fund for Education Abroad, and then even more scholarships. And if you do your own research and you come across one that's not on here, please send it our way so that way future students can know. But I forgot to mention that you all are great Google researchers, and oftentimes if you play with certain terms in Google, like study abroad plus your major and scholarship, or study abroad plus the country where you want to go in scholarship, you might find some that we haven't found yet. So that's another great strategy as well. While we're looking at the website, I'll pull up an example of our new program pages, if our website will cooperate. So here is where you can come to find programs and use our program search. And I want to show you on a program page where you can find the cost. So let me pull up an example that I think has one active. So we'll look at this IES Abroad in Amsterdam. So again, we're in the process of rolling this out. So not every program is currently live, but it will be that way by the end of the semester. But every program will have a page like this, and it will have the same template. And so you see here, here's the Finances tab. And every program, we will call out some specific scholarships that are that the program itself is eligible for. And then you see under here is where you find the cost sheet. And the cost sheet tells you what's charged to your student account and then other things that aren't charged to your student account, but that you need to budget for, such as a passport, plane ticket, etc. And so this is a really great document for you to look at with your study abroad advisor and with the financial aid advisor, because it says what the total cost of attendance is for the program. And then that's what they can use to help you figure out what financial aid you might have available. And you see here, there's even a fun little tool where after you talk with financial aid and you say, okay, I think I might be able to get that $5,000 Gilman Scholarship. I'm feeling pretty good about that. And then I also found out I have a $1,500 Pell Grant. You can put those in and you see it actually updates your total cost of attendance. So that way you know what else you have to try and budget for. Now, I hope I haven't scared you off. This program, admittedly, Amsterdam's an expensive city. It is an expensive program, but we have a wide variety of programs at different cost levels. All right. Hope that quick website tour was helpful. Do you all think of any other questions?
Yeah, I do. You mentioned that we can use some of our scholarships or grants for summer instead of the semester. How do we
Yes.
know which ones we can use for the summer?
Yeah, so actually, I think what we're talking about is more on the financial aid side. So I know as students, we might think of it all as one thing, but federal financial aid is different from scholarship. So let's go back to federal financial aid real quick. And what I was trying to articulate is that every student is earmarked a certain amount of federal aid for the academic year, meaning fall, spring, and summer. And so each year, if you do your FAFSA, you can see how much aid you qualify for that year, and you can choose how much of that aid to accept per term. So let's just use an example, maybe for the whole year, I've been awarded $20,000 and I'm eligible to take 10,000 of it in fall and 10,000 of it in spring. Let's say I know though that I want to do a summer program. What I might do is say, I only want to take 5,000 in the fall and 5,000 in the spring, and then keep that other 10,000 and move it to the summer. And in order to do that, all you need to do is talk with the Office of Financial Aid. Again, my colleague's name is Hua, and I'll put her name and email in the chat, but they're the ones who can help you designate how you'd like to allocate your financial aid. With scholarships, because scholarships come from donors, a lot of times they have certain parameters, and so you might not be able to move it around, but that again is either a question if it's a UIC scholarship that the financial aid office can help you with, or if it's a private scholarship, you would just need to ask the donor.
Okay, so like Pell Grants and MAP grants like are included in financial aid, correct?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Yep. All right, so Hua's contact, I'm putting in the chat now. There you go. And her information is on our website everywhere. So if you don't get it now, you can find it later. But she's really friendly. She's been working with Study Abroad for many years. So she's a really great resource for you. Good questions. What else? Again, it can be about anything Study Abroad.
I don't have any questions so far, and questions asked already were pretty much covering out like the last doubts that I had.
Okay. Well, I'm curious, does anyone have a program already picked out, or do you know where you want to go? Maybe you could just share in the chat or share out loud if you have an idea.
Well, I'm sorry.
You can go.
Okay. So I was like looking at the Caribbean faculty directed one last year, but it got canceled. So I definitely want to do that. But this year they came out with 2 other ones that are nursing oriented. So I'm really interested in the one that goes to Rwanda for mother and child healthcare.
Yes, I think it's our Global Maternal and Child Healthcare Program in Rwanda. Yes, that one, brand new. It's actually being led by Dr. Mayheri, who's currently living in Rwanda. So it'll be a really fantastic way to get to know that country because she's had some great input already. That one is being brand new. It's taking us a little bit of time to get everything together, but probably by October, hopefully you'll be able to find it on our website, okay?
Thank you.
Yeah. I think Victoria, you were gonna share?
That sounds really cool, by the way. But I was interested in the independent publishing in Mexico City for the summer. So
Excellent.
I've been looking around for that.
Yep, that's another new one. Professor Fisher from Design School has put that one together. We've tried to launch it the past 2 years. Of course, the pandemic has made that impossible, but hopefully as things continue to improve, we'll be able to see these programs go out next summer. But yes, that's another one that you should be seeing on our website, again, probably by October. Then Nicholas is sharing that they're a criminology student, so interested in programs related to that. So that is a great way for me to show you how you can use the search to begin to find programs that might be good for your major. So let's go, and this might not work because again, we're still building everything out, but let's just test it out. And if we choose criminology, see what comes up. They do know we have some opportunities. So awesome. So we see a handful of programs that might be a good fit for criminology students. So let's see, we even have this IES Abroad Amsterdam Law and Criminology. And this is, I'm just trying to show you how you can start to shop around. So we found this one. If we want to see what sort of classes we can take as a criminology student, we would just come to academics and read about it. And then every program will have a link to where you can go and actually view the course offerings for it. But yeah, we do have options for you, Nicholas. All right, I think we might be winding down. So the last thing I'll leave you with today, go back to sharing and we go back to our homepage. Again, tomorrow is the final day of our Your Major Abroad series. So in case it's applicable to you, here on our homepage, you see the announcement about Your Major Abroad, and this takes you to the listing. By next week, this page should be fully updated with recordings of presentations that you may have missed. So to the student who mentioned CADA, check back next week and we should have either the recording or the slides here. I know I did one on Tuesday for education and I already put that recording up. So just as an example, you see here, it says view a recording. But for tomorrow, we've got business, we've got engineering, we've got CUPPA, and then our first Gilman session. And there's still time to register for any of these. So feel free to come back here today and sign up. And then also at the bottom, some of our partners put together recorded presentations, so you can check those out as well at your leisure. And then my final plug and request will be to consider following us on Instagram. We are so excited. We just surpassed 1,000 followers, so that was a moment for us. But in all seriousness, it's just a great way too to stay in the know about timely updates, such as scholarship deadlines that are approaching, application deadlines, and our study abroad alumni share beautiful pictures from their times abroad and tips. So it might be something that inspires you as you get ready to go on your own abroad experience. So our handle on Instagram is just @UIC abroad. So very easy. All right. Well, if there are no more questions, I just want to wrap up by thanking you for your interest in studying abroad and joining me this afternoon. I know, again, I've been in your spot. I know the prospect of affording this seems daunting, but that's why we're here, and we would love to meet with you one-on-one and try and help you put together a plan. So please don't feel intimidated to come by. We are in University Hall on the 5th floor. We are back in person, accepting in-person appointments. So you can make an appointment with us on iAdvise. Or if you prefer virtual, we're still doing virtual advising as well. So you can email us. I'll put this in the chat at sao.uic.edu, and we'd be happy to get something set up that way. So with that, I'll be quiet and let you all back to your day. Just thanks again for joining, and I wish you all good luck as you consider studying abroad. All right, have a good semester. Hopefully I'll see you around. Bye.